What is going on, Boiler Nation? You're listening to another episode of the Boiler Breakdown Podcast. It is Tuesday, February 20th. I'm Evan Webb, and if you're watching us live, you notice that Tanner nor Andrew are here. Tanner is on vacation in Florida. Andrew's doing something with work. So we are lucky to be joined by our good friend, Aaron Lynch. Aaron, how's it going? Thanks for joining us tonight.
It's going good. Thanks for having me tonight.
I know you're a big NBA fan, more so than myself, Tanner, and Andrew probably combined. What were your thoughts from All-Star Weekend here in the great state of Indiana?
Might want to be the worst All-Star game I've seen. I saw the half. So in 2001, the final score was the exact same score as it was at halftime for this All-Star game.
Yeah, I did not watch the game. Yeah, I did not watch the game. I watched the I watched Saturday. We had some friends that were there. I was mad that I didn't buy tickets early enough to go on Saturday. It was kind of something that we've always talked about doing. I really enjoyed watching Saturday, but I had zero interest in watching Sunday. I saw some stuff that was going on during the game, and I was like, I'm really glad I didn't, because this is just an absolute joke.
It is. And I guess if Doc Rivers wants Dame Lillard to get going, just play no defense.
There you go. We use that NBA talk to avoid talking about Purdue basketball, because we've both have had a rough little week. After a dominating game against Indiana just over a week ago, Bulls went 1-1 for the week, so not terrible, but you had a win on Thursday night, Tanner's birthday and my wife's birthday, against the Minnesota Golden Gophers, a team that is vastly improved compared to last year. I know we were talking right before we started recording about how much better they are playing. Ben Johnson's done a good job. Cam Christie, he's probably, Owen Freeman probably will get the nod right now, but I think Cam Christie is making a strong case for Big Ten Freshman of the Year.
I would agree.
100%. Yeah, obviously, he came to the year, you might have felt like a Mackenzie Mbako for Indiana, but they're just not good enough, and he hasn't played well enough compared to those two guys. Mm-hmm. Boys end up winning the game, a score of 84-76 after being down by 8 at halftime, and is down as much as, I believe, 12 in the second half. We saw Zach Edey get into foul trouble in the first half. I was not able to watch this. We were at dinner for my wife's birthday, so I was trying to follow along as discreetly as I could. What were your thoughts? Kind of what led to Purdue being down at half and obviously getting down double digits to start the second half before ultimately making that comeback?
Beating ourselves. I think I think this past week, and I think this is kind of, here we go again, kind of thoughts. Turnovers, and then points in transition. It was the same thing. I think there was a turning point, I thought, when Ben Johnson got technical he got technical because Edey's third foul in the second half. I believe that was kind of the turning point in momentum. It helped being at home. We're kind of beatable, I feel, at home. But it was what I was concerned about, and those concerns turned back into reality. I feel like living in deja vu later in the week.
Because say Zach Edey came out. When did he come out in the first half, roughly?
Oh man, remember? I can't recall. I would have to look.
But I know, Minnesota coming on a run. Cam Christie kind of went off a little bit. Dawson Garcia was playing really well. Both of those guys scored in double figures. I definitely think a turning point in the second half, just from what I've kind of read and since then, sounds like Painter put Ethan Morton on Cam Christie and kind of, as the youngsters say, shut his water off, because he didn't really do a whole lot in the second half. Purdue kind of sounded like they kind of woke up a little bit, kind of thought, okay, this is not a team we can just take lightly, and was eventually able to turn it around. For being in foul trouble, Zach Edey ended up with another 24 and 15 game, 2 assists, 4 turnovers, 8 of 14 from the line. So there was kind of that poor free throw trend continued in another game. Braden Smith added 16 and 8 and 8 rebounds, 9 assists. So again, flirting with a triple double yet again. Lance Jones, 12 points, 2 of 6 from 3. Trey Kaufman added 9 points, 4 from the line, which is great to see from him. Fletcher Lawyer, 3 points, 1 of 3 from the line, 0 of 1 from 3. We kind of saw a trend there leading into the Ohio State game this past weekend. Mason Gillis, I mean, kind of sounded just like for me watching and reading, he was definitely the guy the catalyst that kind of brought Purdue back and ultimately won the game. I mean, ended up with 14 points, 4 of 8 from 3, 5 of 9 from the field in general, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. Just kind of being that, that's almost that 6th starter that Purdue's got. And then Caleb first added 6 off the bench. Ethan Miles and Cam Heidi all played but did not score.
And I will say first was best. That was his best game of the season. 6 points in 11 minutes. That was impressive.
It sounded like he kind of gave the offense a little bit of a spark when he went out, which I think, that's just kind of been the trouble with him is just he's not getting the minutes just because of, obviously Zach's playing so well. And I think he is better at that 5. And, we're going to have Zach out there as much as we possibly can. And the game with only 10 turnovers. So that was, after it sounded like we turned it over quite a bit in the first half, didn't turn it over too much in the second half. Purdue ended the game 9 of 19 from 3, 47.4%. Minnesota shot 12 of 25, so 48%. But they were 9 of 16 from the first half and only 3 of 9 in the second half. Kind of Purdue was pretty steady, 4 of 7 in the first half, 5 of 12 in the second half. And really, I mean, outside of obviously the getting down and not kind of winning convincing fashion like we were hoping Purdue would do. 19 of 32 from the free throw line, less than 60%. That's just, especially at home, it's just not going to cut it. I mean, that's just one of the things that when you look at this team, kind of before going into this past week, my biggest concern was the free throws, just from the fact that there's going to be tight games in the tournament, and Zach's going to get fouled. Trey Coffin-Wren's going to get fouled a lot, and we need those guys to hit. I think I saw a stat that actually, especially after this Ohio State game, and Purdue going perfect from the line, that I think Purdue is shooting like 10% better from the line on the road compared to at home. It's like 79 to 69%, which is pretty crazy, but also someone like, hey, at home, sometimes you get a little too comfortable at home. So it could be, maybe not as focused, but nevertheless, Purdue came out victorious. And then, which set up a game on Sunday, CBS against Ohio State, which was their first game after firing of Chris Holtmann. Which, before we get into this game, what were your thoughts on the firing of Chris Holtmann?
Yeah, I was actually kind of taken back, like, why now? There's 3 weeks left in the regular season.
Right.
Why not just
the
wait?
The AD that fired him is on his way out. Like, that was was weird.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it sounds like they're the new AD is going to hire the coach, but he's not going to be in the role until later this summer.
Interesting.
Kind of what they were talking about.
I knew he was the one making the hire, but I didn't realize that's when he was taking over. So that's interesting. I was a little surprised by the timing, but also, like, the more I thought about it, I was like, okay, you kind of saw the writing on the wall that they were going to have to do something with Holtmann, back-to-back years of, starting out pretty well and then just absolutely careening off a cliff. You got to think Michigan's going to be open. Yeah, conference play, yeah. Started out 12-2 this year and then just have not been good ever since. You got to think Michigan's going to open up. I can't imagine they stick with Howard another year after what's been going on. They're just bad. Louisville's going to be an open. Job's going to be open. You'd have to think just how bad they are. So there's some, big time jobs open. So you wonder if maybe they were trying to do that just to kind of get a head start and talking to people. But again, like you said, if the new AD is not coming until it's a weird situation.
It really is. I would be interested to see if Louisville brings back Pitino. I would be all in for that.
I mean, I've always kind of like joked like it'd be hilarious to do that, but then after like his comments this past week on like how awful it is that essentially like he was like just talking crap about St. John's and how awful their facilities are, but they're working on it. They put together a team at like the last second and never doing this way again. It's like just absolutely just throwing their players under the bus and then backing over again and spinning the tires on the bodies. Like I was like, I texted our group of friends. I was like, it sounds like he's perfect for the Louisville job. Just with those morals. Like, I've kind of thought that, when Louisville was sucking again this year, I thought Mick Cronin would probably be perfect for that job. I mean, he coached at Cincinnati, so it's obviously right there. He knows the area well. But it may sound like he maybe there were some things that he wasn't super happy with how NIL was being handled at UCLA, where at Louisville they're going to throw buckets of horse and bourbon money at him, along with the football team. But I think, yeah, Pitino would be hilarious back at Louisville.
I would be all in on that.
Yeah.
And I would be all in on watching that press conference if that happens.
Oh, yeah. 100%. A name that I thought for the Ohio State job, again, just avoiding the talk of the actual game, was it Lamont Paris for South Carolina? He's from Ohio, so that kind of is a name that's kind of what you think would be out there. I sound like they're going to try and sweeten his deal at South Carolina. You've heard names of Sean Miller at Xavier, and this is only his first year back at Xavier or second year back at Xavier. That'd be interesting. You wonder if, like, you've heard like Greg McDermott would be an interesting hire. Obviously, Dusty May's name has been thrown around. Obviously, it's kind of the obvious one for him is Indiana. If he even wants to leave Florida, it sounds like he and his wife love Florida. He could be waiting for Florida State and or Miami to open up. With that one, if we don't have to move a whole lot.
But Jim Larinaga, how long more is he going to be there? Miami?
Exactly. I mean, same with I think because Boca Raton's pretty close to Miami, isn't it? Because I thought someone say like if he does take that, he essentially wouldn't even have to move if he didn't want to, unless he wanted to just upgrade his house because Miami will throw a ton of money at him. Leonard at Florida State, I didn't realize he's in his 70s. He looks good for in his 70s. You wonder how much longer he's gonna do it. I know there were some rumors this last week that their players were going to strike because of NIL, weren't getting paid NIL. I think like supposedly they
the whole Florida State situation, athletics, with ACC, I think it might end up in court. I really do.
I'm here for it. But as soon as Ohio State announced they fired Holtman and they announced their interim, I looked at their schedule and I was like, oh, their next game against Purdue. I was like, great, they're gonna get the interim, spark of energy, that you always see in football. And sure enough, they came out and beat Purdue on Sunday on CBS. A team that has a ton of talent, but just hasn't put it together. Which those teams always worry me, like a Michigan team, like a team like Indiana who hasn't played well this year, but they've got Bruce Thornton was a 5-star. They're not lacking for talent at all. It's just a matter of can they put it together? And sure enough, they did. Bruce Thornton is kind of that dynamic guard that's kind of been a thorn in Purdue's side, the Boo type, Jalen Hood-Schifino from last year. Purdue actually started off like 8-0, and I thought, okay, if we punch them in the mouth, maybe they'll just kind of go back and they'll kind of just we'll take all the energy out that maybe they might have had going into this game. But Bruce Thornton kind of kept them afloat at the very beginning. Edey once again got into foul trouble in the first half. And once he went out, they made the run, and kind of the theme to all 3 losses this year are turnovers. Not only turnovers, but points off turnovers.
Points in transition. Correct.
Yeah. I think looking at the stats.
And Battle hit some big shots too.
Oh yeah, and it was all boom, boom, boom. Ohio State had 22 points off turnovers. Purdue had 5. If you think if Purdue can just cut off a couple of those, or even if some of those turnovers are a travel versus a steal, that the game might be ends a different way. One of the things, a positive from the game was that Purdue went 20 for 20 from the line, including Zach going 8 for 8. Trey Kaufman going 2 for 2, Fletcher going 4 for 4, Lance Jones going 4 for 4. So you fix one issue, it seemed like, but then at the end of the day, you had 14 turnovers. I think one of them was at the very end of the game, so maybe count for 13. But it was just like I said, the timing of those. All of Jamison battles were either off a steal or an offensive rebound. So that was another thing too. When Zach went out, Purdue really struggled to get a defensive rebound. I know at least one of Battle's threes was a result from an offensive rebound. So it's just kind of
that shot.
It's just one of those.
I was going to say that one. I remember that one shot fake. I think it was. We can talk about Fletcher too, but the shot fake. I think it was against Fletcher Braden. One of them. It was on the near court towards the camera side. Shot fake 3. I was like, this game's over. I remember texting my one time.
I had the exact same thought. As soon as I hit it, I was like, yeah, this one has a Nebraska feeling all over it. Thankfully, Purdue did battle back. They actually got it tied, and I thought, hey, they might be able to pull it out, but just couldn't pull it out in the end. Couldn't get stops when they needed to. I think a problem that Purdue had was one was Fletcher. Obvious. I'm a huge Fletcher guy, but he's just been I mean, really, you can go back to the Indiana game. He didn't have a great game, but these last 2 games, I mean, Minnesota, he had, he had 3 points, and against Ohio State, he had 6 points. 1 of 7 from the field, 0 of 1 from 3. Purdue only shot 9 3-pointers as a team, which is really bizarre.
Correct.
I mean, credit to Ohio State. They were running they were running Fletcher off the 3-point line, which some teams have done. Arizona did that to him, but he made him pay with those floaters and runners. They just weren't falling for him Sunday afternoon. And it's just one of those things where you can't afford to have Fletcher and someone like Lance Jones eventually was able to get things going a little bit. He ended up 3 for 11, 3 of 5 from 3. But for a while there, it was Braden and Zach, and that was it. And it just wasn't enough. We needed someone else to step up. And I felt like at the end, like when Purdue was getting stops to get back into the game, it was the lineup was what it was: Braden, Fletcher, or no, it was Braden, Lance, Ethan, First, and Edie, I think. And while it was great defensively, offensively, it was not good because you had 2 guys who essentially just weren't going to shoot the ball. I mean, and they knew like we weren't going to run the ball through First. Ethan had at one point, he had a wide open 3 and passed it up. Mm-hmm. So it's just like you're playing 3-on-5 at that point. Zach had 6? He almost had half our turnovers. He had 6 turnovers. Credit Zed Key for, as much as he slimmed down and couldn't really bang with Edie, he did a really good job of swiping at the ball. And for all it sounds like, I think pretty much all of his swipes, except maybe that last one, he got a lot of wrist, but I mean, the refs weren't going to call it. But he did a good job of forcing turnovers just at the worst possible time. But yeah, it sucks, but I mean, it's only their 3rd loss, but yeah, there is some, obviously, amongst the fan base and Twitter message boards, you would have thought Purdue lost 4 straight. But yeah. So now the Boilers are looking at, only a game and a half as of right now up on Illinois. They play tomorrow night at Penn State, which, I think they're playing as I did Tanner's other podcast, Tanner J-Man Show, in place of Tanner yesterday, talking with our good buddy Josh Munn, who's an Illinois fan. He's saying that game tomorrow is at Penn State's smaller arena. So it should be pretty packed. So hopefully it's a good environment for them. But now it just makes that game at Champaign even bigger if Illinois doesn't drop one before then. So yeah, the Purdue fans who were saying that the race was, I saw a lot of people talking about how this race was wrapped up after the Indiana game. As long as they, it's like we had like 4 or 5 games left before the Illinois game, which I think a lot of Purdue fans have said, that's probably going to be the most logical game to lose. Illinois is a really good team. But if we win those games before that, we'll clinch it before we even play that game, and then whatever happens. But not so much now. When you're going to need some help. Yeah, kind of post game thoughts. So, what are you kind of allude to a little bit? So, what are your feelings about this team after Ohio State?
I think you just can't. They can't beat themselves. They can't. This is what happened in Minnesota. They were able to correct it in the first half, from the first half to the second half. They didn't. It was too late. This is what's combining with lack of shooting, which Fletcher didn't shoot well. This is what's happened in the past in March. If this can get resolved, where they can go is unlimited. They can do it. But the problem is they need to be more disciplined. And I will say, back in January, I was talking to one of my friends, and I said, one thing about Wisconsin was I felt like one of the most disciplined teams in the conference at that time. And I felt like we weren't. There was nights that we would be lackadaisical, turn the ball over, have those points of transition, and pretty much have to dig ourselves out of a hole.
Yeah.
I really think that it comes down to that in shooting, and shooting has vastly improved since last year.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I didn't have the stats, but it was like, I mean, we went from, I think we were low 30s last year, even at this point in the year, and now we're like 3rd in the country, or like top 5 in the country, like 40%. So yeah, that gives me a lot of hope. And obviously the fact that Braden and Fletcher are a year older.
But Fletcher can't be this inconsistent.
No, yeah, and that's the problem with Fletcher all year is like he's either he goes for 28 or he goes for 3. It's what it kind of felt like, and like you can't have that. You just can't. I mean, obviously Braden and Zach are gonna get theirs. Hopefully, Lance has been a godsend for this team. Trey has played well last couple of games, but like we need, I mean Fletcher's kind of like that hunted guy now. But thankfully he's been able to opposed to like someone like Ryan Klein, who couldn't really create off the dribble. He's been pretty good about being able to create for himself, but just the last couple of games has just been not good.
Or Sasha.
Yeah, or Sasha. Yeah, that's like a comparison. So yeah, we need in order for this team to do what they want to do. Yeah, we need Fletcher to play a lot better. That's for sure.
I will say the one thing if there's one disappointment, I wouldn't even call it a disappointment, but I was hoping more promise out of Colvin.
Yeah, so I want to ask. Yeah, so that was, and I'm not sure if you go on Gold and Black, but usually all year the talk has been like, people have been, which for a good reason, came in as a pretty highly ranked recruit, the only freshman, true freshman in this class. Obviously, Purdue legacy with, his sister plays at Purdue on the volleyball team, and you see the athleticism. But it's just, in my opinion, like I get like, Painter had him out there in the early part of the year, like especially the last part of the first half. But then as games got tighter, he wasn't playing him as much. And credit to him, like the IU game, he came in after not playing for 3 or 4 games and immediately hit a 3 when the offense needed something. That's really hard to do, is to come in after sitting for all that time and just come in and guns blazing and be able to knock it down and have the confidence to do it. But I think the downside with him is he just does not play defense at all. When he went in there again in the first half at Ohio State, and he just was not blocking out at all. And that was kind of when Ohio State kind of went on their little mini run to really pull ahead. So it's just, I get people wanting to see him, but again, it's like, and maybe if Fletcher's not doing anything, sure, because Fletcher's not good on defense either, so you might as well try it. But you can't, if Fletcher's playing well, it's hard to justify Colvin being out there too, which is just too much lack of defense.
Correct, but getting with the Fletcher thing, I think fans look at him potentially as what maybe Ivy was his freshman year.
Oh yeah, 100%,
and seeing that promise and in that untapped potential, and you're just hoping you send him out there, him getting a few consecutive minutes is what you're saying, getting to a rhythm and start just knocking down shots that Fletcher wasn't. You have the thing with Lance Jones being a godsend. You have the perimeter defense with him and Braden. So if thank goodness we have a 7'4" massive human down the paint, but if he misses, that's something we'll have to do.
Thad Mooney here. Yeah, Colvin error 404, defense failed to load. Yep, that was and that's kind of where again, you look at similar to Colvin, you've got Cam Heide who's played pretty well. He hasn't really done a whole lot as of lately. There was a good stretch there in January where it felt like we were guaranteed at least like 1-3 from him every game. He's definitely got the tools. He's got the athleticism. He's got the size. You'd hopefully like to see him have the confidence to take a shot. Hopefully, as it gets down, that's probably my one worry is like if he does come out there when we need him, is can he knock down a shot when we need it? If someone else isn't hitting, because he's not going to be, he's not going to be one of those guys that they're keying on, especially if Zach and Braden are in the game. So I think that's definitely we're going to lean on him heavily more than Colvin. But you just hope that one of those guys can do something because they're going to need it.
I know Tanner has mentioned do not take Edie for granted. I think the one player that this team's going to miss more than, because Edie's production it'll get shifted somewhere, but I think the harder replacement when he's out there is Gillis.
He's a Boilermaker through and through. Just seems like especially the fact that guys like him, First and Morton, like those are guys who started a lot last year, played a lot of minutes, and especially like someone like Gillis, who this is his, technically he could come back, but theoretically, it's his last year at Purdue. For him to take that kind of that back seat and just be kind of the veteran, he's played incredible. There's a game like probably won't win Minnesota without him. And there's been a couple other games where he's just been, when we needed a shot, he hit it. He's not lighting up the scoreboard by any means, but he's hitting big shots when this team needed it. He does get a little exposed slightly on defense sometimes, just with his lack of height for rebounding. There's been a couple times where just guys have just been bigger. But just his toughness and just his, he's been in the program for 5 years now, so he just knows everything inside and out. But you're right. He's a guy that, next year if it, especially with 6 freshmen coming in, like he'd be a great guy if he had another year or whatever. If we had room for him, that would be, a godsend for that team to just be able to have someone there just to kind of lean on and learn from.
He's just an elevated Grady Eifert, in my opinion. That
can
just hit shots and actually put points on the board if need be. I mean, his shooting percentage this year is just outrageous. It's got to turn heads on NBA Scout because his motion is actually quick enough to get in the league and get off threes. So I that's what concerns me moving forward is we do have him, but if Fletcher's not hitting, where are we going to get that production from? If it's not coming from either Lance at this point or Braden or Zach.
Yeah. Because you really can't play Gillis at the 3. I feel like it's just it's kind of where lawyers in that 2-3 range, depending with Lance, depending on the scheme. But Gillis is he's just not. He can't guard the 3 position, I should say. So he's so much better suited for that 4. So that's what's tough is if Trey's playing really well or and Edie's playing really well, chances are Gillis is going to be out there. But there's sometimes that we just need him because he's come up big so many times this year, and he just seems like a man on a mission after what happened last year.
Correct. I just the thing we can hope for is Steve Feichel coach team coming to Mackey. Yeah. Is this a wake-up call? Are they going to come out because they know this? A Steve Feichel team, as Painter said, if we're going to war, he'd pick up those guys before he heads off and wants them in a foxhole. Yeah. Is this team going to, bend on Thursday, or are they just going to show up and show they're the class of the country?
Right. And that's kind of, because after the game on Sunday, again, the talk was, which is weird. And I kind of brought up again on Tanner's other podcast yesterday with Josh, was just because I saw a tweet about it where it feels like, and maybe it's just because it shows that Purdue's just so much more relevant now than when, even when we were in school, not that long ago, it feels like a long time ago.
Dude, that was 10 years ago.
Shut up. But when Purdue loses, it's everybody is doing a victory lap. It's just even 5 years ago when Purdue loses, it's no one outside of the state of Indiana really even cares unless they're fighting for a top 4 spot in the Big Ten. But you saw all over Twitter, it feels like whenever Purdue loses, it's this is why they're frauds. This is why they're not going to win in March. The old our fans say this is why we're going to lose in March, which I get because yes, there are obviously some similarities, but at the end of the day, it's it comes down to turnovers, which if any team turns it over and gives up 22 points off turnovers, I don't care who you are, your chances are you're going to get beat. Unless you're just hitting, you're going Alabama versus Purdue and hitting 19 threes, which again, they still lost that game. It's really hard to overcome just giving them 22 points off your own turnovers because chances are they are runouts and things like that. But I did see someone on Twitter say with Purdue, I think it's just because we haven't seen Purdue make that deep tournament run into a Final Four national championship. And so when you do lose, it's oh crap, this is how we lost last year. This is exactly how we're going to lose this year. And you don't see Kansas, Duke, Carolina fans doing that, or UConn fans, because they've seen their team, be able to turn it on. And I think just until Purdue is able to finally do that, which I think they will at some point, it's just really frustrating just from a optimist like myself when it comes to Purdue basketball to see people just essentially just write this team off. Because also it's weird because you got the same people who were only thing that matters is March. Regular season does not matter. But then when a regular season game, doesn't go in Purdue's favor, it's this is why they're going to lose in March. It's hold on, I thought you didn't care about the regular season. Both can't be true at the same time. But like you said, it was my roundabout way of saying I'm not worried yet. But if they come out on Thursday and come out and kind of just lay an egg or are very lackadaisical and don't come out and just absolutely punch Rutgers in the mouth and, like you said, show why they're the class of the country, then I might be a little concerned. But also Rutgers is playing a lot better since they've gotten, was it Jalen Williams? I think is their new guy that they got off the suspension list.
Yep.
Peichel has just always done well against Purdue and Painter. His teams are going to be tough. So it's not going to be an easy game by any means, but you do hope that Purdue comes out and just in a very focused manner and just kind of hopefully just takes care of business. Because really the last 2 times Purdue's lost, both have been on the road at Northwestern, at Nebraska. they've immediately had a game at home and they've won pretty handily. So I would hope Purdue does the same thing on Thursday.
I have a feeling it'll probably be a low double-digit win.
Yeah. So I'm not looking for like a 25. Like if we win by 12-15, I'll be thrilled.
I think what as a fan, if you're wanting to look for something, the points off turnovers, that means they're getting back. They're rotating everything to stop points in transition. If they do that, because turnovers are going to happen.
Yeah, especially as post-centric as Purdue is, like it's going to happen.
Correct.
What you don't want though is the turnovers like Zach had, or where you had like Fletcher just like literally just throwing it to Ohio State player at one point, just because just like those are the ones where you're just like, or you had the ones. I mean, I guess it did turn into points at least off that in that moment, but you had the play where Braden went to throw it to Fletcher, and Fletcher was 5 feet in the other direction and just went straight out of bounds. But yeah,
I think at the points points in transition for Rutgers is low. That means they watched the tape, they understood it.
Yeah,
they limited it, and shooting should be better at home. Hopefully, free throws are better at home.
They're better,
that's the one thing you have to look at home, but it's not. To me, that's something not worried about going into March, because free throw percentage on the road's better. But I think those are the big things, and I just think fans. I think you look at this team. This is the best team I can ever remember. I mean, if you want to go back,
you could argue 2009, 2010 before Robbie went down. I mean, that team never got to number one. They're on their way, but they were humming before Robbie got hurt.
Correct. Or Haas going down.
Yeah.
Right, with the 4 seniors. This team has arguably the best player in Purdue history. I believe it's going to be a shut case. He is. I understand it's not big dog. I understand the 30 not averaging like 30 points a game.
Yeah.
But
because I think I've talked about this with Tanner too. Like I feel like the knock that Edie has, which I mean I love Edie. I don't know if you saw, but we actually my sister and I got my dad a signed Edie jersey, or an Edie jersey for Christmas, and we ended up getting it signed. My dad and I got it signed after the IU game. So I got to see Zach, saying, an hour and a half after the game, signed for everybody. It was awesome. But like I love Zach. He's probably one of my favorite players of all time. I think the knock with him against Big Dog is that Big Dog could create on his own, where Zach has to be set up in order to have success, more than likely. I think that's probably the only and I'm not saying who's better than others. And obviously, if Zach takes to a Final Four national championship, I don't really care anymore. Like you can't crown him like he did something that no one else could do. But I think that when you look at just the player themselves, I feel like that's where the Big Dog maybe has the nod, is like you could just give him the ball, inbound it to him, just and let him go, and just be like, all right, get out of his way. Where Zach has to be set up in a little bit, but he's still. Just like when
I'm going to argue. I'll argue against that point.
That's fine.
First of all, you can just throw Zach the ball right at the rim off the inbound play.
Right.
So that if you want to compare a Big Dog to him, I think they have both their ways. Zach getting the ball, I mean, just because he's not bringing up the court, not being a wing player, that move, was it Thursday or Sunday? He spun right off pretty much did his 2-step spin and went right to the rim.
Yeah.
For being that baby to do that, no.
Yeah. It's when you're putting up stats where he had some stat where it was like the only people who have ever done that were David Robinson and Shaq, or Tim Duncan were the other ones.
It was Shaq.
He's Shaq. It's like literally the greatest big men to ever play the game at any level. You're doing something right. But he's an incredible talent, and it's crazy too. Is just like people forget is, I mean, the years he's played basketball is essentially equivalent to someone, being in 8th grade, freshman year of high school right now. And he's just scratching the surface. Like, as we've seen, I mean, he's gotten so much better compared to last year. And I remember coming into this year, the talk was like, can he repeat, as National Player of the Year? And I thought, no, just because I would hope that his production isn't as good because other people were stepping up. So, but he's blown all my expectations out of the water, and he's just, I was listening to Boiled Sports podcast. They did a handsome hour basketball beat over the weekend, and like they're talking about Zach, and it's just like he's got only a handful of games left in Mackey, and it's. I remember I was at senior night last year, and I remember when Zach was announced and starting, I was like, it hit me. I was like, damn, is this gonna be the last time I see Zach play like in Mackey? And so when he came back, I was like, I'm going to cherish every single moment I can see Zach, because he is such a special player, and hopefully people, and especially Purdue fans, definitely appreciate him. I'm hoping once he's gone, and it's going to take time, but hopefully the basketball community as a whole, because right now he just gets crapped on every chance they can. I hope people realize how special a talent he was at some point. Because he's been incredible.
He's definitely incredible. He's gonna win the Naismith Player again. It's gonna happen. He's Ralph Sampson. How many years ago was that? 40 plus.
So it was the 70s, wasn't it? Or was it maybe 80s?
I thought it was early 80s.
Was it?
And so if you think about that, and like this hasn't been done, I mean, it's kind of like the Heisman of Archie Griffin.
Yeah.
And what we're witnessing is he's like the only thing I can think about Shaq, of how dominant he is. I mean, he's not exciting like Caitlin Clark, Steph Curry, things like this. But what you're going to get 20 and 10 night pretty much from him almost every single time he steps on the floor,
and not even like think about it. Like, I mean, he like again, like he against Ohio State, he had 22 and 13, and it was just like, he was 7-11 from the field, and it was just like, yeah, he was okay. But it's like, if Trey Kaufman-Renn did that, we'd be like, this is like one of his best games of his career. To answer your question, Ralph Sampson won it 3 times, 81-83.
Okay, so early 80s, and he did it 3 times, but no one's done it twice since.
Right? Yeah. Dad Mooney has a comment here. It proves 81-17 in the last 98 games, which is absurd. 3 losses this year. The end of the world fans after each loss, and the fire Matt Painter crew take a deep breath and channel the inner Cubs fan. There's always next year for us cursed Purdue fans. Yeah, that's the thing. It's just like just like the narrative after Purdue lost on Sunday, it was just like you would have thought they were Wisconsin and just lost their 5th game in a row. It was just like, hold on, we've lost 3 games and they're all on the road. And I mean, and yes, I get it. Like Ohio State, bottom of the barrel of the Big Ten, but it's not like it's, a Northwestern team from, a couple of years ago when they had, nobody. Like this team has talent. They just hadn't put it together. And that's just kind of the other weird thing just with this, especially the last 3 years, is like when Purdue loses, it's not to Arizona, Marquette, Tennessee. It's to, last year you could argue, Indiana was good when they lost to them, but it was just like, they've lost to, the tournament obviously losses to the double digit seeds, but it's like, they're not losing to Michigan State and East Lansing, not losing to these like really good teams, or losing to teams that, they essentially were favored against, excuse me. So it's kind of just been the puzzling thing.
Well,
but
that Northwestern team to me, that's a tournament team for sure.
This year, yeah, and it'll be interesting to see where they go without Ty Berry. They had picked up a good win against Indiana the other night. But yeah, they're going to miss him big time. Where they could be a sneaky, second weekend team potentially if they get hot. Now it could be a little bit tougher without them. But yeah, I think Big Ten gets 6 teams in as of right now. Purdue, Illinois are locks. Wisconsin, assuming they don't absolute free fall, they should be in. Michigan State, I don't know what the score is of that game right now. They were down double digits at home to Iowa before we started recording. Assuming they can take care of business, they're down 9 with just under 4 to go at home. They need that game because I think they're right on that bubble. Northwestern, and then I think Nebraska, assuming Nebraska takes care. They need to win a road game, but I think they can be the 6th team. I don't see anybody else outside of that though getting in,
unless they win the conference tournament somehow.
Yeah. Which, like, at Minnesota, it's in Minneapolis. You never know. They've been playing well, so we'll see. Anything else? Any thoughts in general over against the last 2 games?
I think we kind of covered it. I think the only thing I thought, because I saw was Jay Diebler when I saw the interim coach, I was like,
"Yep."
Did you think John Diebler too?
I did too. I was like, wait a minute, but I was like, I'm pretty sure he's an assistant at Butler with Thad Matta.
Yeah, that's why I was like, what?
Because I'm 99% sure I saw him at a Starbucks by my house one day because I was getting coffee and I was like, he walked in, I was like, he was wearing Butler stuff. Actually, no, he wasn't wearing Butler stuff. Because I remember I texted Andrew in the group chat. I was like, this guy's not even wearing his own school's attire. Like, he's out and about. But I was like, he walked in and he was, 6'4", like, guy. I was like, is that John Diebler? And I Googled him. I was standing there and I was like, oh my God, that's John Diebler. But yeah.
I'm glad I wasn't the only person in the world like thinking, wait, he would.
Yeah.
He's not even on that staff. What's going on?
Yeah. Gosh, thanks. I just remember John Diebler torching Purdue as a player. And I was like, the Dieblers just love playing Purdue. And he's a Valpo guy. So I know the Drews were texting them before the game. And you just know that they play Minnesota next. They're going to get beat by like 15 because the interim juice is gone. Yeah, it sucks. I mean, again, another court storm, which credit to Ohio State. I think they did it right. I think they had the security kind of blanket between the players and the fans. Credit to Ohio State. They played really well. I'm sure depending on who their coach is, I'm sure their team's going to get, pillaged by the portal. But we'll see. I was getting a little tired just because of just it doesn't make any sense right now to talk about, but there was the whole UConn versus Purdue narrative of which team's better. Which UConn's playing out of their minds right now. They're really, really good. However, I would argue they're playing the bottom of the barrel. Big East teams are really, really, really bad, and they haven't played some of their tougher road games yet, which they do starting tonight at Creighton. But that's a team that Purdue wouldn't play until hopefully Monday night in Phoenix.
Well, I'll say this before we jump into moving forward. I mean, the release tournament, we were the preseason, mid-season, tournaments committee's overall number one seed. They didn't view UConn that light, and then UConn went out and boat raced Marquette.
Yeah.
And that got me kind of concerned. I was like, oh, well, they want to make a statement.
Yeah. And I think I think it's also just a bad matchup for Marquette, kind of similar to how Purdue was, because they don't have the size to rebound like UConn does with Klingon and like Purdue does with Edey. So I think they're able to, and Marquette just couldn't hit anything. So I think that really exploited their weakness. Cool. So I'll be curious to see how they play, because they play later this year in Milwaukee. Hopefully Marquette can pull that one off. But yeah, it was impressive when I was watching part of it, and seeing Cam Spencer hit a big three just gave me PTSD to the Rutgers game last year. But yeah, I know one of the things that was like, well, everybody, all their starting five is averaging double digits. And I was like, well, yeah, that's pretty impressive. I looked at Purdue. I was like, 4 of our 5 are averaging double digits. And the only reason why Trey's not is because Edey's averaging 20 points. Lance, Braden, and Fletcher are all averaging double digits right now. So, it's I'd love to be able to settle that debate, because that means we're playing in the Final Four or on the national championship, and I will gladly take that any day of the week. But they're legit. They've got a ton of guys back from winning a title, so obviously the confidence and swagger is there, which as it should be. Hurley's an absolute maniac, but he's a hell of a coach. You wonder if maybe like a Kentucky or somebody like that might reach out to him if they move on from Calipari. At least you call him, make him say no, because he's one of the best out there this year in college basketball right now.
That's true. He is. And then the other team that won this weekend, Houston.
Yeah, I give myself pause on them just because first year in the Big 12, I want to see how they navigate those waters. Obviously they defend the hell out of the ball. I still haven't been impressed much with their offense as of right now. But defense wins. So, and Kelvin Sampson obviously has proven to be a winner. But yeah, I haven't really paid attention too much to them just because I want to see how they handle the Big 12 after coming out of the American and dominating that for a couple of years. But if they come out of the Big 12, still, ranked number 2 in the country, then yeah, game on.
They handled Texas. I just love that the Texas fans at Houston with so Hakeem was in the crowd too, and they started chanting at the game SEC, and I was like, "What?"
Well, didn't Ronnie Terry? My sales rep told me to say that Ronnie Terry said something about how next year they're going to play in a much weaker conference, like not as physical. I was like, shut up, because he's stuck his foot in his mouth so many times this year. It's interesting, but yeah, it's crazy to think that it's February 20th already. I mean, it feels like the season has feel like it's gone by so fast, but also like I heard Robbie talk about this on Good and Humble podcast where he says like December feels like 10 years ago. And I agree. Like that Arizona game feels a lifetime ago. But I've been trying to enjoy it. I know there's been a lot of Purdue fans I've talked to or just see on Twitter, like, oh, it doesn't matter. Let's get to March and we'll figure it out. I'm like, man, I don't want to wish this away because it's been so much fun to watch this team. It's probably the most fun I've had watching a team in a long time. Even probably, I mean, I'd say second was probably Jaden's freshman year, just because there was no expectation for that team. Even last year, there's no expectation, and the RSC started playing well. But just being able to watch the best player in the country, wear Purdue on his chest is incredible, and being an awesome kid at that is awesome. But yeah, it's crazy to think that's Purdue's 12-3 in the Big Ten, so it means we have 5 games left in the Big Ten, and at least one game in the Big Ten tournament, at least one game in the tournament. And it's over. It's crazy.
It's crazy. And then it's going to get into question time about this roster. Yep. But I know you all say it, enjoy it while it is here, because 10 years ago, this was bleak.
A pipe dream. Yeah. Yeah. I think I said, what was it? There was some stat. I can't remember what it was, but I remember I texted Tanner and some of our other friends about, like, if you told me 10 years ago that Purdue, was like, people were celebrating Purdue loss, or it was something weird like that. Like, I was like, I thought you were crazy. And Tanner's like, yeah, because we were last in the Big Ten 10 years ago. And I was like, oh my God, you're right. Because it was bad.
He sent me Painter's record at it was like record at Mackey. It was like 40 losses. Mm-hmm. And I said, yeah, 20 of those came during when we were in school.
Yeah.
And he's like, you're probably right, to be honest.
Yeah, it was not a fun time as much as, thankfully, I've been a Purdue fan my whole life, so I've been able to experience a lot of awesome games before school and after school. But yeah, it's like we picked a really bad time to go to Purdue because we saw the end of the hope, beginning of the Hazel era, and we graduated in the Hazel era. And then, yeah, we saw the 2 worst seasons in Painter's tenure outside of his first year when he took over. Speaking of UConn, they are up currently 7-0 at Creighton, 7-1 at Creighton. So they just keep on rolling. Let's pick some games. Man, Michigan State's going to lose. They're down 8 with less than a minute left. Oh, man. Other Big Ten game tonight is Maryland at Wisconsin, 9:00 Eastern on Peacock. Who do you got?
I got Wisconsin. This is
7.5. If they lose this game, boy.
Oh yeah.
It's funny. I should have mentioned on top, but if you're watching us live and you've been following us, we are proud to be part of the Big Banter Sports. And if you're interested in listening about other Big Ten teams, they've got a whole slew of other podcasts dedicated to those specific teams. I know they always do Big Ten Huddle every week. I was on it a couple weeks ago where they talk all things Big Ten sports. When I was on, we were talking about basketball specifically. I know they've got a Wisconsin podcast, Maryland podcast. But I said on that podcast a couple weeks ago, I think they had just lost it was the night they lost at Michigan, and they posed a question to me like, "Are you worried? Is it time to hit the panic button for Wisconsin?" I was like, "Yeah, it was their 3rd loss." I was like, "I wouldn't push it yet. You lost at Nebraska with no shame in that. You lost at home to Purdue, no shame in that. It was a close game. Michigan, okay, yeah, it's questionable, but if you lose at Rutgers or was it at Rutgers or home against Rutgers?" Then I'm pushing the panic button. And by God, like I said, I told Tanner last week, I broke the panic button because it's not looking good. And if they lose tonight, a team like with Maryland who just struggles to score at times, man, it could be bad fast.
And it might not end well for Greg Gard either.
No, they may not. Tomorrow night's definitely the game that has a lot of Purdue fans interested just because we need this one team to lose at 6:30 Eastern on Big Ten Network. We've got the Illinois Fighting Illini ranked 12th right now at Penn State.
Give me Illini.
I think so too, unfortunately. A game at 8:30 on Big Ten Network. I don't know how this team is favored. But you've got Nebraska. It's because it's Nebraska and they have a road game at the Indiana Hoosiers, who are just waiting for the season to be over.
Give me IU on this one.
I think so too. Until Nebraska, as me and Josh were talking last night, until Nebraska wins on the road, I'm picking against them. Thursday night, obviously the game we're all looking forward to on 7:00 Eastern, Fox Sports 1, Rutgers at Purdue. Who do you got? What's the score? Who's your MVP?
Well, I'm going to say Purdue. I'm going to say the MVP is probably going to be Lance Jones. Score is probably going to be 66, 54, 52, Purdue.
Okay.
I think it's going to be defensive.
Obviously. Yeah.
I think it's going to be defensive just because of what we're going to have to bring to the table. And they're going to have to show, as I stated earlier, points in transition. You got to stop it.
I'm going to go Boilers 72-59. MVP, I'm going to go Fletcher Lawyer. Just going to have faith that hopefully he has a bounce back game. Nothing like a 20-point game. I think, if he has a solid 12-15, couple threes, I will be ecstatic. 8:00 Eastern, Big Ten Network, Ohio State at Minnesota.
Give me Minnesota.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they went by double digits just to piss me off. 9:00 Fox Sports 1, Michigan Wolverines at Northwestern. I assume Doug McDaniels is not playing, so I'm sure he's still on house arrest or something. Or he can't leave the state.
Give me Northwestern.
Yeah. Saturday. Oh, man. Indiana at noon Eastern on Big Ten Network. Indiana at Penn State. Penn State dog walked them at Assembly Hall without their guy that they just kicked off the team. I think Penn State wins double digits on this one.
I'm going to have to – I don't think it's going to be double digits. I think it's going to be high single digits, but give me Penn State.
Okay. 2:15 Big Ten Network Eastern, 2:15 Eastern, I should say. Iowa at Illinois.
Again, give me Illinois. That's it too.
They're playing really well right now.
That's someone I don't understand. Is still there.
Who?
Fran McCaffrey.
All-time wins, winningest coach.
Just because you're there doesn't mean.
I mean, it's like what Bill Carmody was at Northwestern for like a decade and never made the tournament.
Exactly. What does it mean if you're there forever?
Yeah. Did you know Fran McCaffrey's never made the second weekend of the tournament?
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
And you look at the women's program.
Actually, this is a game where neither coach has made the Sweet 16 because Brad Underwood has never made it either. Granted, he hasn't coached nearly as long as Fran McCaffrey, but Brad Underwood has never made the Sweet 16 either.
Come on, Iowa. It's time to make some. I know you got a new athletic director. It's time to make some changes.
Yeah.
All men's.
Yeah, all men's sports. Yeah. Sunday, 2:00 Eastern, CBS. You got the Purdue Boilermakers at Michigan Wolverines.
Give me, boiler up.
Yeah,
it's going to be big.
I hope Purdue can run with it. I mean, give Terrace Reed credit. When he was at Mackey, he played Edie pretty well. So that gives me a little pause about that. I don't know if they've brought the team back yet, but I remember when Michigan won the national championship in football. I looked at it, I was like, I don't know. I don't care when the game is. When they play Purdue, they're going to bring that team back just to pack people and let people know so they can pack the place. And that gives me
they already
did. I figured they already did.
They already did.
They'll bring it back just because they need to pack the stands.
They'll fire Juwan Howard.
They'll fire him on Saturday. Michigan State should do that too. Why not? Give me Purdue. No. Purdue 85, Michigan 69. Zach Edey gets a 30 burger.
I think it's gonna be a 30 and 15 from him.
Yeah,
it might be another almost triple double for Braden.
Let's see here. Sunday at noon on Big Ten Network, Maryland at Rutgers.
Give me Rutgers.
Same. Ohio State at Michigan State.
Michigan State.
Yeah, Michigan State. That game's at 4:00 Eastern on CBS. God, what a I'm sure it looked good like in November, but man, that game sucks right now for CBS. 6:30 Eastern, Big Ten Network on Sunday. Minnesota at Nebraska. Actually, sneaky, like could be a really fun game. Yeah, high scoring, I think.
If Minnesota goes 2-0 this week, I think there might be trending for the Big Ten tournament. I'm going to go Minnesota on this one.
Can you imagine? I mean, it was like a week ago where like if the Big Ten tournament started like that day, they were the 4 seed, which is insane.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna take Nebraska because they're at home. I hope this game is like 100-95. And we'll do one more. So I don't think we're gonna have. I doubt we'll record next Tuesday. Or if we do record next Tuesday, these games will be going on. So no games on Monday. Tuesday, 7:00 Eastern on Peacock. Wisconsin at Indiana.
Got Wisconsin on this one. They got to right the ship. You can't.
Just win one. I'll take Wisconsin. I think it's Wisconsin. I think it's a close game. I think it's like a less than 5. And then Penn State at Iowa, 9:00 Eastern on Big Ten Network.
Give me Iowa on that one.
I'll take Iowa. I think it's another high scoring game. I think this wraps about up. I guess one more question. As of right now, who is your Big Ten first team?
That's put me on the spot. I don't really know off the top of my head. I mean,
I think I would go, and I don't really do the whole like you have to have one point guard, one shooting guard, not just take 5 best players. I think it's Edey. Probably Shannon, Boo Booey. Could argue Jameer Young. Trying to think who else might round out that last 5. I mean, honestly, Damask for Illinois you could get that. Braden Smith obviously could be you could argue.
I think Braden is probably borderline first team.
Yeah, just I mean you could get that just because if they win the Big Ten or whatever. But yeah, it's interesting race.
That'll be something to actually see when the season's over. What it is.
Yeah. But before we go, I want to make sure we let you know about our sponsors. First one up tonight is our friends over at Mad Mushroom. Board Breakdown is brought to you by Mad Mushroom, serving Boilermakers since 1993. Mad Mushroom is located in the heart of West Lafayette and is well known as the home of the original cheese sticks. Whenever I like to visit, or Aaron likes to visit, or Tanner or Andrew for that matter, I like to sit down and have a nice cold beer while trying out their latest pizza of the month, which this month is the Raging Cajun, which is their house-made Cajun sauce, celery, onions, green peppers, tomatoes, chicken, cup and char sausage, and mozzarella cheese, starting at $14. Next time you're in town, stop by and tell them Boiler Breakdown sent you for $5 off any order over $20. And any Boiler Breakdown listener can use the coupon code BREAK5 for $5 off at modmushroom.com. Feed your head. Then over, obviously, our friends at the shop. I'm wearing a shirt I just picked up this weekend. It's the Gene Katie Play Hard. I wore it in honor because Purdue did not play hard on Sunday, and I hope they play hard on Thursday. I also have the sticker in the background. If you're watching live, I got the sticker behind me as a reminder to play hard. Hopefully they do on Thursday. They've been making T-shirts since 2011. Started out in garages. Now they've got it just opened up. They've got 3 retail locations now. One in Carmel, one in Broad Ripple, one in downtown Indy. Stop by. They make incredible shirts. I picked up this Gene Katie shirt plus a shirt that commemorated All-Star Weekend in Indy. Super comfortable. And if you go online, you can use promo code Breakdown, and you will get 25% off your entire order. See if I can pull up here on the screen. I don't know if I have it. Here we go. Use promo code Breakdown for 25% off your first order. Appreciate the shop for hopping on. Any final thoughts, Mr. Lynch, before we bid you adieu? Appreciate you hopping on tonight.
Just need a 2-0 week.
Let's do it. Yeah. 2-0 week. All will be right in the world. Hopefully, go Penn State. And let's blow up, hammer down. Let's beat the Scarlet Knights, and let's beat the Wolverines.
Boiler up.